and living in Claude. That's about that operating system piece. You're building the intelligence there, but you have to be quite clear in how you classify this as well. So you've got your team, you've got your reporting and analytics, and then you're feeding the memory all the time. So it can curate and then derive these insights. There's a document which you go in, a now.md file, which on a weekly basis, you update what your priorities are. And then it pulls everything else from all the other systems and marries it in and tells you where to focus. Because what you put into AI, what you get out is only as good as what's there. So if the data is incorrect, it's going to go to bad data and give you poor insights. If the data's on point, you'll get that really crisp insights at scale. And then I come into the start of the week and I have an agent which goes, you need to prioritize these and you need to look at that. So everything flows through that. It's an operating system which starts, and then it's about plugging it into the core systems that you're using. And that's really where the power is. How do you have time to spend on AI? I think sometimes when you're using it the right way, it's giving you time back to actually think and strategize.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Leaders in Talent podcast. And today I'm joined by John Keenan, who is the International Director of Talent at Gong. John, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. John, can you give our listeners and viewers a little bit more context? One of the amazing companies that you worked with in the past and what your current role as the Director of Talent at Gong looks like and what Gong does for the people that don't know.
Sure. John Keenan, as you mentioned. So I've been in TA in various roles for nearly 20 years. So I spent my first 5 years in agency recruiting and have then pivoted into tech over the past nearly 14, 15 years across LinkedIn, Pluralsight, and obviously now Gong, where I lead, as you mentioned, recruiting internationally for Gong. And what that entails is everything in EMEA and APAC. And I've been with Gong for just over 4 years. And your last point, the question around
what does Gong do?
We're a revenue AI company, so very much within the AI space. And we have about 1,400 people globally in the business. And as mentioned, our European headquarters is Dublin, and that's where I'm based out of.
What does revenue AI mean?
So in its simplest terms, it's a platform which helps salespeople ascertain insights at scale to drive performance, to drive coaching, to drive next steps, to drive deal efficiency, to forecast, all of those things in very much an orchestration system. That's what we do.
Amazing. So you're at the forefront, at least the company is everything that's happening with AI, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I could argue, wow, huge opportunity, but also potentially a risk for what you're trying to do with how easy maybe some of the data is now available for people and also what people can build themselves. At the same time, the unlock of all the different touch points, what you can build and what you can create, right? Prior to our conversation, we had a little bit of a chat, and you're also doing stuff with AI within the recruitment team, obviously, right? And what you mentioned is don't start with the technology, right? Start with the pain points. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
It's now more than ever. It's very easy with AI and this age that we're in to look everywhere. Where can I put it in? All these bright, shiny new tools you can get, and they can really not be addressing the pain points or the business challenge or the issues in your specific funnel that need attention. And so it's very easy to do that. Diagnosing the pain points, to your point, is key. From a recruiting perspective, it's very much just breaking down the funnel and understanding, number one, where can AI be implemented really efficiently? So that's your first point. And then what's the major business challenge? One example of that would be driving alignment with interviewers. So AI and some of the tools we're using can help us do that and help us really drive that alignment. So it's about looking at the funnel. Where can you implement AI efficiently and easily? And there's a lot of that sort of stuff, like designing job specs, designing Boolean strings for specific searches, reporting and analytics, really delving into that. And then interview intelligence, recording interviews, deriving insights, those types of things. There are things that are here already. And then obviously we've got the likes of Claude and the frontier AI companies as well, which are becoming the operating system which everything drives through. And that's almost a different conversation. But Yeah.
And you're using Gong, Brighthire, and Claude, and then an ATS, I assume, to drive.
Great.
Tell me a little bit more about that setup and like how you use this. And when you say, hey, yeah, we look where the pain points are in the funnel, that all sounds great in theory, but help me understand how you use that on a day-to-day and what you've strength attached and
So
how you work
So,
through
like
that.
everybody else, I'm on the journey
Yeah.
with AI, but I'm very much an avid Claude user. So
Yeah.
I use Claude very much as an operating system. So what I mean by that is everything flows through that. So everything that I'm working with, that I have connectors to, that's another valid point. Getting the MCPs and right connectors with that, but anything that I can get Claude connected to, I connect to. So I've all my project folders in there. I have reporting and analytics in there. I have team-based performance stuff in there. And then I feed that in on a weekly basis. And as an example, what I would do from an efficiency gain, I have an agent which really just goes and looks at my priorities for the week, helps me define those by pulling info from these systems, and then accesses all these. And then I come into the start of the week and I have an agent which goes, you need to prioritize these and you need to look at that. So everything flows through that. It's an operating system which starts, and then it's about plugging it into the core systems that you're using. And that's really where the power is with AI. And some companies like Greenhouse at the minute are launching an MCP just recently. It's just a
Yeah, I
beta.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just on starting utilizing that. And then another Brighthire is another system that we use as an interview intelligence system as well. And they're defining an MCP also. So it's about getting all those connectors set up. And I do think that's the way it's going to go really in the next tier already. It's about getting the right connections, but in the next 6 months for sure to a year, it's everything that flows through these frontier companies is going to be the key and connects with that.
So I love the idea what you just shared. So help me understand practically and then also operationally, how have you created that weekly update for yourself? Like what are the data pieces that go into it for you to have a clear view? It's like, hey, these are the things that I need to focus on. Because if I understand you correctly, you get an update. It's like, hey, this is going well. These are the areas where
This is the areas you need to focus. Yeah, absolutely. So the interesting thing about, and this was my first agent, I'll totally own that.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about building an agent is it's where you start is it's what's called, I don't know if you've heard about building a human stack. So these are files which you build, which are about your working style, about who you are, what your voice is. So you almost program the AI with that. So there's these files which they can pull this information consistently from within specific projects. So for the purpose of this, that's weekly planning. So you go in, you automate the agent, you update what it actually, and there is a manual piece to this as well with agent building. There's a document which you go in, a now.md file, which on a weekly basis, you update what your priorities are. And then it pulls everything else from all the other systems and marries it in and tells you where to focus. So for example, it looks into Slack and it goes, have you missed anything there? It looks into, if I put in my priority is performance reviews, it looks into previous data on my team that have been put in there. And then it comes with action items and points for you to build and work on. So that's what it will be in its simplest
Okay. Okay. Is there also already, or is that something work in progress where you look at the funnels across the different roles that you see? It's like, hey, be aware, this is a funnel where we're behind, X number of interviews or something like that.
It's a work in progress and the reason being for that, it's these MCPs where they're at beta with Greenhouse, it's getting that. But that is absolutely the intent of what these agents will be having to do would be, but access to the data is key and making it connect, because at the minute, some of it is a bit manual. You're loading stuff manually into the likes of Claude to ascertain some of these insights. But the core thing, and I think what a lot of recruiting leaders are seeing right now is like data integrity with ATS has always been important. It's even more important now because the process flows have to be really adhered to, because what you put into AI, is what you get out is only as good as what's there. So if the data is incorrect, it's going to go to bad data and give you poor insights. If the data's on point, you'll get that really crisp insights at scale. So a lot of TA leaders, including myself, we're very much on that journey of data integrity. How do we really just ensure that is done and that for some recruiters, that's they're better than that than others.
Yeah,
Let's just say that.
100%, 100%,
Yeah,
100%. So how do you do that with your team, right? Does everyone have free access to Claude? Is there specific
yeah,
guardrails? Like,
yeah.
what's the take there?
So from a Claude perspective, we've started on the journey for the last 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months, where we got
Yep,
enterprise licenses,
yep.
and we've just built from there. And it's in terms of the training and what we've done, like, not, I wouldn't over engineer that. Claude do a very good certification, Claude 101, which is
Yep.
good at getting up to speed. I'm personally doing I'm a executive coach as well. I'm doing a course in training AI for coaches, which has been
Mm,
excellent. It's because
yep,
it's really started with building your understanding of what's the model for you, what's the LLM for you to use, how to
yep.
program it. I mentioned the human stack, to agentic building, to other pieces like with your team, how to coach. Like AI for coaches is a really interesting area. It's a different thing, but it really can derive a lot of patterns and that you may not see if you're coaching somebody, and that feeds into kind of team as well.
Interesting.
Mm.
So how many John? So are you using it for the AI to coach you as a coach?
No, it's to coach other people. So as an example, when I'm coaching
Yep,
somebody, you'd record
yep,
and then you'd feed that into Claude or whatever it may be. But Claude, as I mentioned, is the one I use, and you would prompt it accordingly. So it's all about the quality of the prompt. So you'd put that in, and it would then give you insights and kind of takeaways on that. And as you build that within that specific project, the intelligence builds and it gets to know these individuals more.
yep,
There's confidentiality things you do. You don't
yep,
mention names and things like
yep.
that, obviously. And then it really just builds at scale. And you can go in, like, as an example, after this, I need to build a one pager with action points and next steps for this particular individual after a coaching assessment. That's done. That can be automated
Yep.
and done after you leave. So things like that. So, but what it does at its best is pattern recognition. So there's things you might miss, and then obviously automated follow-ups, automated things like that can certainly help. But the human nuance, you absolutely
Yeah,
need
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You need to, and I think that's a skill, isn't it? That's emerging, is how can you merge an AI output with human nuance and make it sound credible? Because I'm almost noticing now people are sending me things with AI, and you're like, "What's your opinion?"
I was about to
Yeah.
bring this point, right?
Mm.
We're proposing a big RPO project actually tomorrow, and I spent tons of time back and forth with Claude of creating the proposal. Like, all of the input was mine,
Yeah.
right? Just the output and what it looks like was Claude AI generated. And now,
Yeah.
like, to your point, it speaks in my tone. It doesn't have the dashes anymore. So
Yeah.
when I read the document, I was generally excited by what it looked like, the
Yeah.
visuals, etc. And I sent it to my co-founder and to the lead of the project, and they were both so irritated.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was fascinating because
Fascinating. And that's happened fast.
I know, being on the receiving end as well, when someone
Mm.
sends me an AI generated email, it's so obvious, right? Still, or a document, I
It's almost
very
insulting,
quickly,
isn't it? It's almost
yes,
insulting. Yeah. So we're at that. That's happened fast as well.
yes, yes.
So
So we've now made, in our management team, we've made the agreement. We do not share any AI generated
yeah,
content like in
good.
email, unless we say specifically atop of the
Yeah.
email, hey, AI touched it up or made a little bit, these are my own words,
Yeah.
this is it. But we're very careful with that,
Yeah.
because we even had, at a certain point, I had a disagreement with my co-founder, and we were both using AI to convince the other people over email. It was horrendous. It was horrendous. It was horrendous,
Yeah,
right?
I can
It's
see.
horrendous. Wait, where did we lose each other?
I can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Is one of the things that I'm looking into now, and especially what you share with your executive coaching, what you're doing. We
Mm.
just went through our mid-year reviews.
Yeah.
And the problem I always have is that I do the mid-year reviews, but the examples that I remember are the last 4 weeks, right?
Right.
Yes, I take some notes left and right, but now what I'm actually doing is I'm building an agent that will collect all of the recordings of our one-on-ones,
Yes.
and then in that specific framework of mid-year reviews with the goals, to save, especially the stuff 4 or 5 months ago, to
Totally.
get that in and create it actually for me based on real conversations. That's something
Yes.
I'm trying to build right now.
That works well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm interesting, but in the anonymization, etc. Any thoughts there on like how to do that in the proper way, what you've done with your executive coaching?
Yeah, like I totally agree with that approach. It's about, but like it's how you use it. So for example, Claude, it's ensuring that you've got it programmed, you're doing that in specific projects that it remembers, first of
Yeah,
all. So then it's deriving insights as you build that intelligence up. But I totally agree with that approach. I'm doing exactly the same with performance reviews. And I'm living in Claude. That's about that
yeah,
operating system piece. You're building the intelligence there, but you have to be quite clear in how you classify this as well. So you've got your team, you've got
yeah,
your reporting and analytics, and then you're feeding the memory all the time. So it can curate and then derive these insights.
yeah.
So totally agree. It's about doing that, but it's challenging in a way as well, is what we're seeing is companies are training this stuff, but people are learning at different speeds as well. So it's almost a whole new concept, AI literacy.
Yeah, definitely. Is that something that you're looking to? We have several of our clients, but it's early days that now are hiring with AI fluency frameworks. Is that something that's also being discussed
It's
within Gong?
it's been assessed. AI literacy is certainly dependent on the role, obviously, as well. But when we're hiring, we're very much assessing at the top of the funnel for AI literacy. We're not pushing too hard on it as of yet. Curiosity and ability to understand and conceptually understand is the starting point, is the minimum standard, I would say. But that I expect that to become a lot more refined very quickly.
So one of the things that a lot of our clients are actually facing, I'm curious if that's the case with you,
Mm.
is that tons of fake candidates, motivation letters,
Mm.
resumes, and that inbound applicants is
Mm.
becoming a bottleneck actually versus
Mm.
something that helps bring in the right candidates. Is that
Mm.
something that you're experiencing as well or not?
So to clarify the question, you mean is it just excess inbound is making it harder
Yes,
in
correct.
general? Okay.
Excess inbound with some resumes that look amazing, but then
Yeah.
turns out it's just AI generated to the job description, and people actually just so kind of like fake fraudulent candidates, and then just the sheer volume.
Yeah, there's definitely the fraudulent candidates is definitely becoming more prevalent. I do
Mhm.
think from talking to my colleagues, and this is you'd obviously know about this more, is it seems to be more of a thing in the US. That's a
Yes,
trend initial.
US is
Yeah.
predominantly where we see that this happen.
That, that
US and
that's
Asia, actually. US and Asia.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Where so less so I've seen it personally, but in terms of the higher inbound flow, yes, you're seeing CVs that are a lot more refined. It's you can update your CV with Claude in
yeah,
15 seconds. If
yeah,
you, it's very easy to do that. But in terms of the inbound, what I would expect is if you've got the right screening in place, a good recruiter supporting that, you're going to be able to cross check with a LinkedIn profile or something like that. You'll be able
yeah.
to see that. Personally, I haven't seen that as a massive issue, but I'm aware that it's becoming one.
Yeah. In terms of recruitment and business, AI, the whole centerpiece, is there anything that you're doing to help hiring managers to be better at recruitment interview processes? Is there anything that's happening on that front that you guys are working on?
So I mentioned earlier, like driving alignment in was one of the biggest challenges you find in recruiting, but it's always been the case.
Yeah.
And good recruiting teams and good tend to have that alignment. So when it comes down to it, decision-making frameworks are built up. So one we would use is the rapid framework, which is a Bain decision-making framework. It just gives clarity to who in the process is making a decision.
Yeah.
So without even talking about
Because
AI,
rapid stands for help me again,
so or
responsible,
is if you're
accountable. Is it?
so recommend, or is recommend, A
Yeah.
is agree, so that's like the veto, P is processing, who
Yeah.
processes, I is input, that's the interview panel, and then
Yeah.
D is decision maker, so that's the hiring manager typically. So what you do is like recruiting would sit as the or, they'd recommend, you literally use that language. So I recommend, you're the D, and then you at the outset of a process you make it very clear who sits where. So before any kind of AI implementation, I think that's a really important piece, because what I found in different roles over the years is you have a lot of particularly more junior hiring managers. They can be heavily influenced by more senior people.
Yeah.
Say a more senior person interviews and they're not sure. That can dissuade a hiring manager from making the decision, which is theirs. And I think
Yeah.
it's good to promote them to make the decision, particularly for their own teams. So clarity and decision making, I think, is a really good starting point for
Sorry,
alignment.
one second, John. So
Yeah.
how does the rapid framework help with this particular user case, especially when you say more junior hiring managers that might be influenced or persuaded by more experienced people? Is it because the D is then so clear, hey, it's you that makes the final
Yeah.
decision, or like
And you empower them to make that decision. So it reduces friction. So in the decision making. So if sometimes when you don't have that clarity at the
yeah,
outset, what you find is, as I mentioned, they either don't make a decision, a hiring manager, they defer it to somebody else, and then what happens is you have a bit of paralysis in the
yeah,
funnel and things aren't moving. So I think that's really important. But what AI is doing, and this is very much something we're working on at the minute as a team, is really just looking, what I suppose bias mitigation is, and there's probably never been a better opportunity to look at that as a recruiting leader. So a lot of times I would be maybe dependent on gut feel at times and going, I'm not sure why there's blockages in this funnel. And now with some of the AI tools, like the likes of Bright Iron previously, obviously what we used internally, but what you can do is that divergence is clear now. You can at scale build up those insights and really just ascertain, as an example, this person is, if they're developing rapport with somebody, they're not probing as much as they would with somebody else, things like that. So it's about driving consistency, ensuring they're asking the same questions, being super clear on what competencies they're
yeah,
using. A lot of this is simplistic stuff, but what
yeah,
AI does, it gives you the ability to scale it more efficiently. So you have the competencies set up at the outset, you have the decision-making framework set up at the outset, you drive that into the system, and then you can review at scale how people are addressing those. And if they're not, for example, if somebody is, as I mentioned, is developing rapport with somebody, they may give them a kind of softer interview. If not, they may not. So it's about driving that consistency, and then you debrief at the end, and then at scale you can see if there's any divergence from that. So that's a use case we're working at the
yeah,
minute.
yeah, yeah,
But it's interesting, in interesting times. What AI gives to TA, somebody in my seat or TA leaders anyway, is these insights at scale. But again, I go back to my previous point. It's about the data. It's about
yeah,
the process flow, but also the consistency, using the same competencies. And this is stuff that's always been around.
yeah. Do you think, in terms of the role of the recruiter, do you think now in 6, 12, 18, however many months, part of the role of the recruiter is going to be taken over by AI interviewers?
So this is an interesting topic, isn't it?
Yes.
And I know, like, I've seen this and I've spoken to Brighter about this.
Yeah.
And I think what they're using it, like the terminology seems to be pre-screening, pre-AI screening seems to be
Yeah.
the terminology. But and the question was, do I see this replacing recruiters?
Yeah, or like, where do you see this fit in, right?
Like,
And I know there's no, like, I'm not going to hold a gun against you. This is the conversation I'm having with,
yeah.
with
Like,
everyone.
do I see it right now? No, I don't. Like, I see for certain roles, very kind of junior volume support, sales development. I think there's definitely an upside potentially with using AI screening, because there's two things. There's efficiency gains. Instead of having to coordinate an interview, you just send a link and they 72 hours to do it, and they can do that. So there's huge efficiency with that. You can, again, program the questions, be super clear in terms of what you want to assess against. That's all great. And then it can, like, per se, as a recruiter, you could go to bed and be screening people in APAC and wake up and have 20 people screened. That all sounds great, right? But the reality of that, then there's downside to that too, is there's going to be people chasing the humans on the team for sure for feedback. So that's one thing. So extra volume will create other tasks. So that's something to consider. I think the more senior you get with a role, I absolutely would not use it. Or I think if you try to use that for anything senior, I think people would opt out for sure. I think I've seen people opt out. I've certainly heard that, and there's a place for it, and I do think I absolutely, I think that is something that will evolve. Will it replace recruiters? Absolutely not right now. I think it can certainly give efficiency gains to recruiters for some of those reasons I mentioned, but it's not there. It's not there for any kind of complicated hiring or more senior hiring, and I certainly don't think, I'd be shocked to hear if anybody's using it for those purposes.
Yeah. If you were a candidate, would you be okay speaking to an AI interviewer?
I wouldn't be comfortable at all. I wouldn't be comfortable at all. Yeah, I don't think I'd be comfortable at all. But again, like we've seen over the years, Zoom interviewing 10 years ago was
Yeah.
people weren't really comfortable recording calls. They weren't comfortable.
Yeah.
Applying to an ATS, there was a time when people weren't comfortable with that. Things can change, but
There's-
the technology is not there yet.
There's this fascinating, I sometimes go back to it. There's this fascinating little clip, news clip, when the mobile phone just came out, and they're interviewing people on the street, and they're asking them, it's like, would you buy a mobile phone? Of course, the clip is edited in a way, I don't know like how big the sample size was, but in this clip in particular, out of the 6 people that they interview, all of them say, no, why would I want to have a mobile phone? It's like, what, people are going to call me while I'm like in transit? Why would I need that, right? I have a phone at home. And it's so fascinating. And that's the question I'm asking myself. Is it just because I'm thinking, it's like, no, I want to speak to another human and I'm just not used to it? Or is this also slowly technology that's all of a sudden just will be there? And
if it catches up and there's more nuance to how it's done, and it could be more normalized, but right now, no.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Hey, you mentioned there's no bigger time to innovate, yet time is our most scarce resource, like in terms of time to think about it. How do you do that? How do you carve out time to think about the things that you want to build? How do you motivate your team to do so?
One thing leads to the other, actually, interestingly, doesn't it? When you think about it, like, it's how do you have time to spend on AI? I think sometimes when you're using it the right way, it's giving you time back to actually think and strategize. So that's number one. It's how can I look at the tasks that I'm doing that would have been previously quite time consuming? Reporting and analytics is one thing. With the likes of Claude, there's an ability to really do that stuff much more efficiently. So you're literally saving time there. Team management, how you do that, how you organize yourself, how like plan your week, all of those things, which can take a lot of time, that there's time saved with that. So I actually think it's about looking at where AI can give you those efficiency gains to spend thinking time on what you can build with AI, how you can do that. So just taking that approach is, and certainly with my team, that's the case as well. How I do that is making sure that people are giving it the time, because it actually does, on the other side, the more you put into it, the better, then the more time you'll have to do the kind of, as a recruiter, the things you want to be doing.
Yeah, fair point. John, this was such a pleasant conversation. I really enjoyed talking. I think some real nuggets of wisdom. I am going to look actually into the rapid framework. I think that's a great example of the one thing as leaders. It's so important that we communicate in a clear and concise and consistent way with something that's easy to remember, right?
Totally.
Like language is so critical to get anything done, for people to embrace whatever change or whatever process or whatever steps you want them to follow, right? So that also really resonated with me.
Good. Thank you for your time. Pleasure.
John, is there anywhere, what's the best way for people to connect with you or follow you? May I assume LinkedIn?
Yeah, John Keenan. You'll see me on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Feel free to connect. Follow me.
John, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for your time.